Well, thank you all so much for inviting me here, particularly to Scott Johnson and to the president, and of course all of the members of the Society of the Cincinnati. You know, this is such a historic organization committed to the promotion of the study of history. And this particular lecture, as I hardly need to tell you, is itself a historic lecture series. And so I thought I should begin my remarks tonight in honor of history, the history of history, the historiography of the American Revolution. I wanted to just begin by mentioning one of the greatest books by one of the greatest historians of the great subject of the American Revolution, and that is Bernard Bailyn, who in his 1974 work, The Ordeal of Thomas Hutchinson, a work published around the time this lecture series started going, concluded his book with an essay on the historiography of loyalism. And his take on the topic, my topic tonight, really captured everything that Bailyn thought you needed to know about the topic of loyalism. The title of that essay was The Losers. And he goes on in that essay to explain the contours of a historiography, which, as he put it, told a bizarre story, quote unquote, unnaturally vivid and exaggerated. History is written by the victors, and the history of the American Revolution, as told in the United States, bore out the victors' biases. The new nation's builders, as Bailyn explained, wanted to stress an essential consensus of belief and outlook in the earliest years of our nation's history. And Bailyn also explained that on the other side of the Atlantic, British Whig historians were more interested in maligning the ministries of George III, which they perceived to be venal and corrupt, than they were in resurrecting the kinds of people whom they saw as affiliated with those ministries. So on the British side also, the losers, the loyalists, were left out. Historians remained, in Bailyn's view, woefully unable to explain, quote, why any sensible person, unquote, might remain loyal. Though, of course, the revolution had social consequences, said Bailyn, in its essence, it can only be understood in political and ideological terms. Now, the thing about foundational histories foundational as the American Revolution is for us, or the French Revolution, of course, in France, and I could cite many more, is that every generation finds something different in the foundational history. Every generation finds its own reason to keep revisiting that touchstone. Bailyn was writing at the time of the bicentennial, a time when many people were looking to the history of the American Revolution to try to get a sense of the ideas that animated the founders. And like many works of the period, Bailyn's book about Thomas Hutchinson, the last royal governor of Massachusetts, was fundamentally interested in this question of ideology. But the historiography of the American Revolution has, of course, continued to be animated by the concerns that each new generation of historians looks back on the event to find. And the history of the American Revolution has evolved in a whole range of directions since Bailyn wrote in 1974. So this evening, I want to update Bailyn's notes on the historiography of loyalism, to present a fresh picture of loyalism in and especially after the American Revolution. I want to contend to you today that loyalism matters for us now, not only, and indeed not even mostly, perhaps, for what it has to say about the political and ideological terms of the revolution that Bailyn was so concerned with, but rather it offers a lot for understanding the American Revolution in an international context and for giving us a sense of this founding moment for our nation within the history of the world of the time. And so I invite you this evening to follow me to the other side of a looking glass. On this other side, the right thing to do in the American Revolution was to stick to your word and stick to your beliefs. The right thing to do on this side of the American Revolution was to remain loyal to the king, to remain loyal to the British Empire. On this side of the looking glass, the losers, whom history has largely forgotten, become the main actors. And on this side of the looking glass, the story of America unfolds as much beyond our shores as it does here in the United States. This history of the American Revolution, the loyal history of the American Revolution, deals not only with figures like Thomas Hutchinson, whom Bailyn profiled in the 1970s, but also with figures like Thomas Brown. Let me tell you a little bit about Thomas Brown and his American Revolution.